Thank you everyone who's joined today. I have the pleasure of speaking to you about my short journey. I was talking to the KEPSA team about the gurus that have been featured in these seminars before and feeling a bit intimidated because I think in the entrepreneurship journey, I have a couple of years, so not that many, but they were very, very clear that there are people who are willing to listen to someone who is on a startup, so to speak. So asante sana and good morning from Nairobi, and happy to see that we have quite a number of people who've joined. So maybe I'll start with a short introduction. I don't have slides because I thought it should just be a conversation. And I'm happy to get your thoughts. I've captured quite a number of expectations from this slide, but let me introduce myself. So I'm a medical doctor by profession. I have not practiced clinical medicine for over 15 years. And my journey has been very interesting in terms of I've not been on the expected journey of medicine. So for medicine, most of the time, people expect that after you've finished your 6 or so years of training, you've done your internship, you proceed towards working for a couple of years, mostly for the government, and then you apply for a course, a master's course, mostly in the disciplines of, let's say, pediatrics, surgery, or internal medicine, whichever disciplines there. And after that, you get back to, again, the clinical practice and get recognized as a consultant and build your business there. So that was the path of most of my colleagues. I finished in 2002, which is quite a while back. And many of my colleagues are very, very successful consultants. On my end, I just felt there was something more I could give rather than sitting and attending to one patient at a time. And I remember being curious about other fields that are not necessarily medicine. In fact, when I was growing up, rather when I was a teenager or when I was in campus, I was very purposeful in how I spent my weekends while in campus. I made sure that I went to visit family or friends over the weekend, interacted with people who are not necessarily studying medicine. And as such, I got quite a lot of exposure into what else is there apart from the healthcare space. So my aspects of entrepreneurship, I guess, started quite early. I would say from high school, where I was in this national school very far from home. And to supplement my pocket money, I would ask fellow students who were not quite enthusiastic about washing their duvets. I would wash their duvets at a fee. I think it was 5 shillings at that time. These are the early 90s. So 5 shillings was still significant. And as such, I was able to accumulate, extra pocket money for my own use. And then in campus, I was sharing this with someone yesterday. Upon reflection, I also knew that I needed extra money. I think what inspires me is that I love the good life. So in campus, I walked up to my professor at that time and told him, look, I need extra income to supplement what I'm getting. I'm willing to do jobs after school. And so I was linked up with this doctor who works in research. And my job at that time was to go around visiting various doctors and getting them to fill out a research form. Those days, we didn't have a lot of internet, we didn't have mobile phones. And so, you'd have to hustle, you'd have to stay outside the doctor's room, wait. Sometimes they were not there. Sometimes you leave the form, you come back to follow up, they've not filled it. And it was quite a hassle, but I would earn 100 shillings per form that was filled. And with that, I got to learn about resilience because it's not easy to just sit. Your counterparts are relaxing in their rooms or wherever they are, and you're out there knocking on doctors' doors. But I got to grow my social capital. Like, I am familiar with very many older generation doctors because of the fact that I worked on that space, and that was for around 3 years. So when I finished medical school and got posted into one of these districts, at that time they're called districts, I fell sick and I had to come back to Nairobi for treatment. We didn't have a medical cover at the time, was not what NHIF is right now. And
I think we're losing sound.
That is Kenyatta.
Yes, you're right. We are losing sound. Just give us a moment. We check what has just happened. Dr. Wala's connection.
Sorry for that. My internet just skipped. Can you hear me now, Linda?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry for that. So I was talking about my journey, and long and short of it is that I got called into this other profession, which was research, by the doctor whom I'd worked with. And that is how I moved out of mainstream clinical care. Now, with the various jobs, why I'm bringing about my experience in these various jobs, it's because I got my eyes really opened up. So I'm always looking for opportunities that are not mainstream. So I've worked for various sectors in the health space. I've worked for research, I've worked for pharma, I've worked for NGOs. And now with holding these certain positions, I've been able to be exposed to things that are more than just healthcare. So how did I start my business in terms of Wanderlust Diaries? I love traveling, and through these other positions that I've held, I've been able to visit quite a number of countries. I've been able to visit even within Kenya. I've been able to travel a lot. And I just love traveling right from when I was young. So I've made it a habit that every so often I go somewhere. If it's not work related, it is leisure. And even with work, I would ensure that my ticket, if it's a flight, would be a day or two after I had gone. So I would visit the museums. I'm really someone who's into history. I'm someone who's into environment. So I'd make sure that I'd visit what that place entails. In Kenya, what I've done is whenever I travel, especially with my children, I would identify locals around there. For example, I'll talk about a journey I did in Elgeyo Marakwet and Baringo counties. And we went to this place that we had identified through my social media page. And I asked the manager there, is there any local person who can show us around? We happened to get 2 university students who are on a break, and they were willing to take us all the way, all these famous sites. And that is a way in which you're able to visit these places and promote local tourism. I'm also a writer. I love blogging, and I blog about my life generally. And within that, I started blogging about the places I've been to. And my emphasis has always been travel does not need to be expensive, because I think our impression of travel is you have to be on a flight and you have to be out of the country. So I've just managed to dispel some of those myths. For example, traveling to Uhuru Gardens, which right now I'm seeing there's construction going on, or traveling to Arboretum, for those who are in Nairobi, basically looking at what is around you and starting from there. So travel, I started demystifying travel right from a long time ago. The other thing that I tried to help was travel with my children. simply because we come from very far. I come from the western part of this country. So a trip to visit the grandparents was a whole day's trip. And with that, my children have learned to travel at such an early age and make that travel fun, because we'd research the places and see whether we can stop along the routes and get to know, certain places along the route, so that it's not a boring one-way trip. And it really helps if you have your own car. But even if you don't have your own car, you can still use public means as long as you're moving. So when it came to around April of last year, because that's when the COVID-19 measures were coming on board, I got very claustrophobic, because I'm an extrovert. I want to be out there. I want to be with people. I want to get to know what other people are doing. And with that kind of experience, I got really depressed, so to speak, because I want to get out, but then there are these measures where you can't work. So you can't travel for work, you can't travel for leisure. We were on a lockdown. So I am very active on social media because of my past experience in terms of writing about my life, writing about my relationships, my parenting. I just find it therapeutic writing. Yeah, writing is therapy to me. So I said, okay, why not start a group where we could start sharing our travel experiences? So that did not start, the group did not start as a company in mind. And for me, this entrepreneurship journey is actually working backward. Like right now, it's when we are setting up governance structures or setting up policies around what the company should look like. So I started the group because I've run several groups before. And those other groups were mainly based on parenting. So there's a group that I have for multiples, and it's a society, so it's not a company. And there's a group that I have for some people whom we call ourselves crazy people, just to have discussions about anything and everything. So with Wanderlust, I went with the mind of, this is a group that's going to enable other people to share their journeys. And I went around collecting the images and the blog posts that I'd done for my previous travel and started sharing. And I have this tag that says, one crazy woman, 4 children, and Nyamalo. Nyamalo is my beast. The beast is an old Pajero. So we usually hop into the Pajero and we drive around. So within 1 week, the group had grown from, of course, one, which was me, to around 150,000 people. And I couldn't believe, like, there was so much hunger and thirst for people sharing experiences about travel. So I found that there was a very big community, travel community, and people were just looking for an opportunity to start sharing this. I'm a member to an international travel community that's just for ladies. And my experience there and my experience in Wanderlust are totally different, because in that international group, people post, there's very sober, they're sober conversations. Now, my other 2 groups also have very sober conversations because people are linked with one common area. And then I founded this group and I started getting all these crazy comments and, online bullying. And I just said, I think we have so many people who are hurting and who are looking for an opportunity to hurt others. So within no time, we had really grown to around 300,000, but within that 300,000 membership, we had quite a number of comments that were very hurtful and insensitive. And so we had an exodus also of very good travelers who felt the group was not adding value just because of the conversations that were going on. So what I did since that time, it was just, I was myself and a friend who was a co-admin. I quickly mobilized several other people who wanted to volunteer and ensure that the group was kept safe, that it was a safe space for people to share and encourage each other. Then it is on that premise that I felt, okay, this thing can become bigger than what I envisioned it to be. And I went ahead and registered it as a company limited by shares. And what I noticed is that Kenyans being Kenyans, within a period of a month, I think there were 4 groups with similar names. In fact, at some point, there was a group that even took my logo and called themselves the same name. So there was a lot of confusion. And I want to just relate this to people who do online business, that there's a lot of imitation, there's a lot of copyright issues. And I think many of us as entrepreneurs, we get into a business without realizing that there are other people who are just looking for opportunity to piggyback on your ideas. So I was very shocked, I think, because I'd not gone into a business where I needed to compete in terms of creating my value or creating my brand to separate from the others that were imitations. And so here I was faced with this same name, because Wanderlust Diaries is, you cannot patent the name since it's an English word, but you have several other groups that are being formed and pretending or mimicking what you're doing. So to do that, I had to change the name of the group to add limited on it, because when I added limited, by then I had registered the company. I also want to encourage people that registration of a company nowadays, I think KEPSA has done a good job in terms of improving the ease of doing business. You can register a company by yourself, and it takes like three working days for e-citizen clearance, and you have your company name. You can also register a business name, so you don't have to do a company, because the company also has certain regulatory obligations. A business name, I did one for something that I opened the other day, and it took me 24 working hours for e-citizen approval, and I think it costed like 950 shillings. So some of these processes, I think I have learned to do stuff for myself, because I'm a curious person. I want to understand how things work, and I want to understand how, like, I don't want to be a lawyer, but if I'm able to do things on my own, then I do them on my own. And I think many of these government processes have really been simplified. So I want to encourage anyone out there who's feeling daunted about the prospect of registering a business, either as a name or as a company limited, that it's very possible to do it by yourself. So the other thing that I did was, in identifying a name, because I think I see myself more as a creative, I picked the name Wanderlust, and Wanderlust, very many people look at the last bit of that name. But Wanderlust is an English name that describes a person who has an urge to travel. So, and then Diaries came about because Diaries is just about a blog or information around it. So the space of Wanderlust Diaries was to provide an opportunity for people to share experiences, basically to keep a diary. So there's a lot of engagement, and that's the focus. I had quite a number of people telling me, oh, go into this space or go into that space. And so I had to remain focused, because I knew that there was an opportunity to make money by simply opening up like the marketplace and letting people advertise, but it was going to remove that aspect of people engaging. So with that, I have kept away from marketing opportunities and limited them. I've put a fee of, I think it's 5,000 shillings to put up a post. And even that post that is put up for marketing is done by the admin. And the reason why this is happening is to allow the platform to continue being a space for people to engage rather than marketing. And so that's how does that translate? It means that in a month, I don't make more than, let's say, 20,000 shillings, which is very, very little money, if that business is what you're going to rely on. So I had to think of other means of complementing Wanderlust Diaries as I'm building the brand into bringing other sources of income, and I'll come to that later. But I want to touch on how did I come to getting a logo, because for me, it was very important to have an identity. And initially, and this is what most people do, is you reach out to your friends, and I have a lot of social capital. And I said, look, I'm looking for someone to design a logo for me. So I got someone to design. It was affordable, I think I'll say, use it by international standards. And what came out was a logo that I felt was okay. And then a friend of mine reached out and said, Liz, there's no way you can have such a logo for a brand that you want to go international. And she told me, she took me by her, under her care, and she said, I'm going to give you free sessions, mentorship sessions, on how to transform Wanderlust Diaries Limited into a proper business. So I took up that opportunity, and it was hard work because every week she'd give me an assignment. And you remember, I have a full-time job and I have, you know, other responsibilities that I do. But because I said I am going to do this for me, I have registered a society before. And with that one, we went in as a couple of people. And my experience from it is that I felt I really pulled a lot of the weight. I carried a lot of the weight compared to what the other people are doing, because everything was on volunteer nature. So when I wanted to register Wanderlust, I said, I looked at who can I pull on board so that we register it together. And then I told myself, why don't you do this thing for you, for yourself? Because I'd never done anything for myself, and given myself that opportunity to try something alone. So I decided to go at it alone. And it meant that I was everything. I had to conceptualize the idea, I had to conceptualize the vision, the mission, the whatnot, by myself, of course, with the help of and the support of my friend. So she told me, look, these are some of the resources that are available for getting logos designed for you at an international level. And there's one website where I went to, it's called 99 Designs. And with 99 Designs, what happens is that you pay almost 30,000 shillings. Now, compared to what I paid for the other logo, this was so much. So it meant that I dipped into my pocket to look for 30,000. So you pay it, it's in you have to have a credit card because it's an online international platform. And then you describe what kind of logo you're looking for in terms of the kind of business, in terms of the kind of design you're looking for, or what basically you describe what you're looking for. And then they have this many number of designers who pitch. It's like an auction. So you're given 1 week in which these designers come back to you with logos, and you can't contact any designer because it's just a designer name. There's no email address, there's no phone number. So what you do is that you start narrowing down, and in fact, they tell you, don't rush towards narrowing in the first couple of days. Wait until the other, like 6th day or 7th day. And to tell you the truth, the design that had come up, that won, came on the 6th day. And I had narrowed down to 3 people, and this person, because you communicate now on that platform, there's no email address, remember? So you finally agree on the design that will go out, and then you lock it down. And that is how now that designer is paid, and you get your design. So I got my design from this person. Once you have closed that and agreed, then you're allowed to communicate to the designer themselves. And I got to know that the designer who did my logo is a person who's based in one of the Scandinavian countries. And he said, you know, I designed this logo for you because I have this social phobia, like he can't get out. And so he says, through my logo, this logo will leave my legacy, because it's going to talk, it's going to support a community that is about traveling. And I think for me, that was such a very real story that I felt went into the design of the logo. So my logo is an arc, and it represents the sun, the ground that's green, and then it represents, there's a blue part that represents the ocean. So one of the things I want to tell you is about your brand. Branding is very important, and you have to invest in a good brand, because that is what is you're going to carry through for the most part. You can imagine, I invested in a logo that was very busy, according to my mentor. I had to swallow that loss because I paid for it. And then I had to dip into my pocket for more money to invest into another logo. And with that logo, please ensure that you've registered the logo with KEPRI. I think the process for registration is very simple. On their website, you fill a couple of forms and you pay a minimal amount of money, and they're able to do scans, and then you can trademark your logo. Since I can't trademark my name because the name that I've used for my organization is an English name, so it's a phrase, so they can't trademark the name, but they can trademark the logo. Now, the moment I trademarked the logo, I was able to write to, remember I told you there are this couple of groups that came up, and one was actually using my logo. And I told them, look, if you don't pull down that logo, I don't mind you using the name because I know how I'll set apart my community. But if you don't pull down that logo, I'm going to instigate legal issues. I mean, a legal process to do that. So someone has asked, please write the name of the organization. It's KEPRI, K-I-P-R-I. It's an intellectual property. It's a government institution. So I've registered the company. I have registered the logo, and now I have started doing some form of marketing. Remember, I've told you the most I'm getting out of that, and that's why I think I feel so many of this is coming from a point of people not understanding what you want. You will have a lot of pressure into driving you many places. For example, I was told, why don't you start now, start a tour company? And I said, I'm not a tour company. It's not my space. My main goal is to provide a platform for engaging, a community that engages in travel, almost like a TripAdvisor, so that by the time the brand grows and is recognized, we can put that logo in let's say a travel destination and say, this travel destination is Wanderlust Diaries accredited. And that's the kind of brand that I want to grow. So in the first 1 year, I've concentrated a lot on organic growth of that, just to build the trust in the community, to build the conversations, to understand who are the people posting most, the persona basically, what are the tour and travel companies requiring. And I know I've been brought out into a number of groups saying, oh, you are not giving tours and travel operators an opportunity to market. And I just go back to them and say, you know what, my main income source is not going to be through marketing. And the reason why I've done that is because my long-term goal is to partner with, to go into big partnerships. So like with the brand Kenya, and we're already in conversation with them, with the Kenya Tourism Board, with, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. We are a member of Kenya Private Sector Alliance. I think that's the other thing that I want to tell you. Please identify a business community to which you can belong, because a lot of business is shared amongst some of these networking fora. You also get a lot of mentorship. I sit on some of those committees. I've volunteered into some of those committees, and I interact with, let's say, hoteliers, or I interact with tours and travel, and they'll tell me these are the things that are going through. This is how COVID has affected us, and this is how you as a business can plan into it. So I made sure that I have registered as a KEPSA member. For the new members, less than 3 years, unless it has changed, it is 10,000 shillings a month. I then also identified what sector can I belong to, because KEPSA is the umbrella body of private sector players. I went into the Kenya Tourism Federation, called them up and said, look, this is what you want to do. Now, the classification of the federation is such that it is an association membership. So I can't belong as an individual company. I can't belong to the federation. So they told me these are the number of association companies that are there, basically business member organizations. Identify where you suit most, and then register with them, and you'll automatically be a member of Kenya Tourism Federation. So I looked at them and identified Ecotourism Kenya, because that is where we plug most, since we are not a tour operator, we are not a hotel, we were not fitting these other units that they had. So again, more money. So you have to invest a lot of money to setting yourself up. I paid also registration for Ecotourism Kenya. But through that ecotourism Kenya, I've managed to get a lot of inroads into what is the community around travel. Because for me, remember, I'm coming into this business as a traveler. I've not experienced myself as a business member. And then it's not also my primary job. It's a passion that I have. So with ecotourism, what I want to encourage you is network, identify your business organization, go in to learn, ask questions, participate or volunteer for the committees that are there, because you get to be exposed. But the other thing that I gained a lot is the social capital within that, and share about your stories. I know in KEPSA, I started almost boring people by sharing my stories, and I started to get noticed. And I remember one comment from, I think that time he was the chair of Kenya Tourism Federation, Mohammed Hersi. He said, you know what, I'm a member. And I went to him and I said, I want you to join this group because I want you to see what we are doing within the group, within the community. And he one time said, you guys are becoming bigger than Brand Kenya. Okay, that was a very good affirmation that I'm along the right path. And it really, really helped to try and just see how else I can change it. Now, remember that my income of 20,000 is not enough to sustain the business, even, leave alone myself. So I had to think of how else can I build my income stream still under the tours and travel space that is not necessarily the Wanderlust Diaries, because Wanderlust Diaries is supposed to be a community of travelers, and the partnerships that will eventually bring in a lot more money are coming on board slowly by slowly, because people want to see, first of all, what are you doing? What have you delivered so far? What are your numbers, and what value are you bringing for them? Because we are a small business, and I see many of us here are also small businesses, always know that the larger person has the upper hand. So you have to be the one to bring value to them. It means that there are a number of people knocking on their doors. So if you go to them without a proper strategy, without the value that you bring, then you're going to waste their time. And I learned this the hard way, because we knocked on one of the big partners that we wanted to engage in, and we didn't even have a slide set of who we are. I mean, you can get to that space where you assume people should know what they want, or people should know who you were, because maybe you've grown a brand, but you don't have anything tangible, or you don't have a presentation or a proposal that can bring value to them. So I learned the hard way, because it just sounded like we were very confused in that meeting. And I told my team, look, we are not knocking on any other person's door until we resolve, or we find, what do we want, who are we, and where do we want to go, so that when we're going to meetings like that, because they are quite big opportunities, then we are able to have our elevator pitch and clinch a deal from that conversation. So what did I do? I identified where I'm staying. My landlady had an extra house that she was renting out. So I took up that property and converted it into an Airbnb. It's called Coven Cottage. And what did I use? I used my experience as a traveler, because when I travel, especially if it's not for work, I am very, very categorical on the type of place or the type of accommodation I seek. Like, I'd rather go to a place that promotes, ecotourism, a place that promotes recycling, a place that gives back to the community or is community-led, rather than the bigger facilities that may not necessarily have these spaces. So I decided, let me turn around this space into what I would enjoy as a traveler who's looking for a place that is looking at sustainability and ecotourism, because that is the essence of Wanderlust Travel, that we build a community that promotes ecotourism, that promotes sustainable travel for generations to come. Since today we go to a place, and this is what I've seen a lot in the group, some people will go for this, like there's an event in Naivasha, but by the time they are out of there, they've left litter scattered, they've left, vegetation, they've stepped on, maybe not grass, but they've stepped on flowers or they've cut branches. So that means that you're not thinking about the person who's coming back tomorrow to that place. So I wanted to have a community that's able to have that idea that we need to take care of the travel that we do today for the generation that's coming tomorrow. And how have I grown my team? So I have 2 people who are on a commission basis in terms of sales for the marketing that I'm doing. And so I don't have full-time employees. And the only reason I don't do that is because I had to go back to the drawing board and say, look, I need to have a vision, I need to have a mission, I need to have my outcomes, my outputs, and I need to have the activities that are going to do that. So right now we are on that space of working backward, things that we should have done before that I didn't do. And so this is a very critical lesson that I'm telling people. If you're starting a business, have some idea. It may not be very concrete, but have some idea, because you might suddenly grow big and you don't have those structures in place. So I put a halt to any future conversations around partnerships or around growth in terms of financials, so that I put my internal systems in place. And I think by the end of September, I should have a very good working document. I think I would also want to say that just because we have focused on organic growth, we have focused on conversations that are building. For me, it gives me so much fulfillment when I see someone coming up and saying, look, I saw a post that was shared here, and in that post, someone showed the way they traveled with their elderly parents, or someone traveled with a child who's differently abled, or someone traveled for the first time using public means to a place. I was able to get out and see what my county offers, or I was able to get out and travel with this group of strangers whom I'd never traveled with, or I was very depressed, and travel really gave me that motivation to be mentally healthy. We've seen travelers who are using, walking or hiking just to get their health back. So those are the kind of inspiration stories that I want to get. But what is on my future plan? So I've talked about setting the structures, the governance structures in place, so that we are able to track our movement or our productivity. And then the other thing that I've put in place, I opened a bank account, by the way. Opening a bank account is very important, because if you're an entrepreneur who's starting out, it's very easy to mix your monies. So the monies that you dip into your pocket and then you put into the business, you should be able to track that, because that business will be owing you that kind of money. So ensure that you have your accounting in place. Banks are now very, very flexible with SMEs or MSMEs. And so as long as you have your legal structures in terms of your CR12s or those are the documents that are given through eCitizen, make sure that you open a bank account, separate your monies from that. So with my organic growth, we've been able to tap into conversations around the world. We've been able to tap into conversations locally. We've been featured on KEPSA platforms, on magazines, and even lately, the other day, it was on CNN. And so for me, I had a focus of growing the brand first before making money. So now that the brand is growing, now that the brand is on, I am appearing even in this KEPSA SME meeting, I am now ready with my structures in place to go for the big brands, because I can go now to Samsung, who are maybe mobile providers, and say, look, I have this travel community, and people use photos to take pictures. I mean, people use their cameras, the phones, to take pictures of the places they've been. So what kind of partnership can we get into? Because now I will have something very tangible to go towards. We've also been recognized by Facebook, and soon you'll be hearing an announcement through Facebook. They've selected Wanderlust Diaries amongst 131 other communities in the world to feature on communities that are doing social impact, and they support you to grow your community into a space where you can make money from it, but also a space where you can have a social impact. So I'm very, very excited because that program has started, and it's just coming from the recognition that you have the conversations going. Ensure that if you're an online business, that you've tapped into online spaces. So ensure that you're on Instagram, you have a website, you're on WhatsApp, or you're on, where is your audience really at? In my space, I'm very good on Facebook, but because I know I'm not strong on Telegram and the other things, I've brought on board other players who are part of my admin who run those conversations in those other spaces. So Telegram, Twitter, WhatsApp. So those are the things. So look for people who can complement your strengths as you're growing. The other thing is get people who believe in your dream. And I'm lucky that I've gotten a team that is ready and willing to give their time as volunteers as we grow the dream, because it's very clear. I mean, I have this open book policy. This is the income that we are getting. This is your commission. And so we are still in that space because we have not yet grown. But if we grow together, and if you put in a project, why not? You can run with that project as the project manager for whatever business that you've brought in. So you might not have the money to have a team, but you can clearly work cleverly into bringing on space people who believe in your vision and people who are able and understand that you're growing together in this. And please keep your word. When you've grown, please don't go back and turn against them, because that happens in business. But ensure that you're bringing on board the goodwill. So I think I've touched around a couple of things, of lessons that I've learned. Have I failed? I think about my failure in terms of when the community becomes very negative, the conversations become very negative, because I know the mental health issues on what bullying does to people. I also know that I lose travelers or people who want to engage because they feel it's not a safe space for them. So I think for me, those are the kind of things that I see as a failure, because we are not able to control what goes out there. But I've built my community in such a way that I encourage people to report, and we take action against accounts that are, misbehaving. And we have a set of rules. So we have like 10 rules that you join, and some others that are not part of the 10 rules, that we try to ensure that we create a safe space. In terms of resilience, I would say it takes a lot. It takes a lot to start a business. I have had to balance my professional life, because I do have a professional life, my personal life, and then time for this community. But I started with a vision board. I think some of you are seeing the vision board there. And this is a concept that one of my mentors also mentioned when I was going through some coaching for something else. And they said, as long as you can't see something. So every day I come to this office and I have Wanderlust. One of the pictures that's on the board is one of where I want Wanderlust to be. It becomes an inspiration, because it means that every single day I have to commit a certain amount of time. For me, it's usually late nights or early mornings, because that is when I am flexible, into putting time into this organization, because I am determined to prove to myself, and maybe that's my personality, that I have to prove to myself, no matter how hard it is, I have to prove to myself that I can run a business from scratch. So for me, that is a big, big motivation. So it's important that you need to have resilience, and you need to adapt quickly. Things have changed. For example, we had events at some point, and then the ministry of the government came out and said no more events or no more travel, and that meant that it affected the engagement that was in the community. It affected the businesses that people are getting. So you have to be creative and you have to adapt. So for example, when we had the red zone that included like 4 counties, we had to ensure that the areas that are being promoted are within those 4 counties for the people who are living in Nairobi. Most of the travelers are from Nairobi. So as you build your business and things change along the way, please ensure that you are very flexible and adaptive. When I started the Airbnb business that is complementing Wanderlust, I was very optimistic. I mean, I had this idea of the kind of client that I have, and then those kind of clients weren't coming. So what I did is I started doing events, because now with events, you're able to showcase the place because people now have to come to the cottage. And then one of these weekends, one of the events that we held, someone paid, but it ended up being a party for teenagers. You know, we didn't know it's teenagers coming, because you know, you receive payments on M-Pesa, so someone blocks, we don't ask for ID, or even the teenagers could use someone's ID to book. And they showed up, and I'm telling you, it was chaotic, because you know, they were drinking, and they were smoking weed, and within 2 hours we had to kick them out, because this is breaking the law. And the effect of that was that now my landlady said no more events, because it's putting her at risk, it's putting all of us at risk. It's a quiet neighborhood, so you can imagine the kind of fracas that was being caused. So now I have this business that I have invested in that's supposed to supplement Wanderlust, and now I can't hold any events. So what did I do? I calmed down, because initially you panic, because you have rent to pay, you have bills to pay now. You know, Wanderlust, I don't have much to pay apart from maybe the online hosting. But now when you have a physical structure, physical business, you have, you know, utilities, you have someone you've employed, you've put in your capital into let's say the furnishing. So I had to now say, okay, how else can we continue holding the events? Because the events are held under the Wanderlust banner, and then feed traffic of real people who are coming for accommodation into the cottage. And that is the conversation now we are having. We've opened up, we've identified another place that has the licenses to hold parties and whatnot. And then now from there, since they don't have accommodation, we have now moved the traffic. We've marketed the cottage there. So the thing I'm telling you is that you might have all these well-laid plans, and things might be rosy at first, and then you get one thing that totally spins you around, and it's very easy to lose focus. It's very easy to get discouraged. So I want to say, and I want to end and say by saying, sometimes you start a business, like some of us, we just start, and then now you figure out governance structures later. But it's important, if you're able to figure out governance structures early enough before you grow too big, it's very good. The other thing is, you can get paralysis by analysis, yeah? And I see a number of my people who get into that space of everything has to check in right before I start something. I did a feature on my birthday in April called 43 at 43, where I showcased 43 women, female entrepreneurs. And what I noticed is that many of them just started, yeah? So they didn't have this, you know, plans, well laid out plans. They didn't have this governance structures. People just followed their passion and then built up from there. So sometimes it's important to have all this Harvard business kind of plans. Sometimes all you need to do is just start. Just start, follow your passion, identify your customer, and make sure that you are giving a solution to that customer. Don't build a solution and then go look for customers. Work backward. Get the customers, it's part of your passion. You see they have an issue, and then you build a solution for them. So I think for me, Wanderlust Diaries came about because there was a need for people to have a community to talk about travel, because there are guys who are really travel enthusiasts. And it's from there that I've built this solution, which is a platform where people can engage, where we can get the traveler to meet the providers. So Linda, I will stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
ETC, maybe you can speak a little bit about community building practically. How did you get Wanderlust to have so many followers, or how do you get yourself to build communities, at least for the people on the call? Because I think the future of business is exactly what you're saying. A lot of engagement, being so close to your customer engagement is the future of business, customer experience, and etc. The people who will master that are the ones who will really succeed. How do you do it practically on your case?
Okay, so on my end, I think because I have a history of writing on Facebook, and I write about anything and everything, I have built a natural followership, if that's an English word. And what I did is, because I've always been writing about my travels, I've been blogging. I have a blog, Liz Wala at WordPress.com. And what I did is, people have previously been coming to me to say, oh, where's that place you took your children to? Where is that place where you went and hiked up a mountain? Or where is that place that you went and did this and that? So I had built that kind of traffic naturally from my writing. But now building the community, we used a lot of snowballing. So the people I added in the beginning were mostly my friends, and my friends who I know love travel. So when you're building a community, you can start with who are the people to whom this speaks to, because it has to meet their need, it has to meet their interest. And I'll tell you, social media is fighting to have everyone's interest. So there's a lot of noise out there. How do you ensure that your platform, whether it's a page, whether it's a WhatsApp group, whether it's that, is speaking towards the needs of that? And then you distinguish yourself. Like for us, we clearly said marketing is restricted. I know we've been it's not been received very well by the providers, but my main goal is to have people talk.
I'll be interested to learn how to use social capital when one is in a social environment that is not supportive or aloof. Any thoughts? Building social capital.
Oh, that's a very good question. So social capital, I think for me, in my definition, is about who are the people you know and who knows you. And the thing about it is that you have to be out there to know people and to be known. So that's why I was emphasizing on groups. For example, KEPSA, and which is something I preach to almost all my friends. KEPSA is already a community that avails to you spaces, webinars. Now that we are online, most of them are webinars. Or if you can do expos, know how to present yourself here being either you as a person or your business in an elevator pitch. For example, if you go to a networking event or if you go to an expo, do you have even calling cards? Because that is what most people don't even know, that you should have something to represent. And now there's even they're online calling cards where you just go over the QR code and the details come on board. So ensure that you say, for example, if I go for an event that is being hosted by Kenya Tourism Federation, I'll make sure that I will find out, even from the organizers, who is expected to come. And I'll know, okay, what do I want to get out of this event? Maybe I want to make an inroad with the chairman, or maybe I want some hotelier somewhere whose business I need to advertise, or maybe I want the government, whichever. So so don't go just far into a meeting. Go with an agenda, prepare for it. If you need to carry your flyers, if you need to carry any documentation that will help you to sell the business. And by the way, don't be ashamed of saying this is me and this is what I do. Because then we are also so modest. You want to say, like, you see, my title is what? Chief Visionary Officer. And I said, I borrowed it from a friend of mine whose startup I'm also part of. And he says, I'm not a CEO, Dr. Wala. I am the one who's carrying the vision in this organization. So I picked that up and I am proud to carry that label. So I don't want to go and say, oh, I'm a Makove. No. I'm very proud because you put in your sweat, your hard work. So be proud of your brand, speak about it, and also get to know what the other person is, because people relate when you are interested in them. So make sure that if you're talking to the government or if you're talking to, let's say, a hotel, know a little bit about that hotel so that you say, oh, how is business? And then know about current affairs, and this is where I started from. Open your mind, be aware of the rules and regulations or the laws, be aware of BBI, and don't go following, let's say, I won't name names, but people who are not speaking objectively about something. Log into webinars. Nowadays, webinars are almost all free. Get to understand what is this new Data Protection Act all about? Or what is this taxes that the government was imposing the other day? How is it affecting my business? So log into those spaces, legal spaces. And then if you're in a webinar like this, leave a chat, leave your contact. And I think I've seen quite a number of people doing that, because this information is being collected by the organizers. And when they start to share information about future events, they will use the database that they have. So get to be in those spaces, volunteer for some of these committees.
So Thomas is asking, how do I market? How do I market? Yeah, design, branding, and printing. Yeah. So he's in the design, branding, and printing. And how does he market that and get reliable prospects, since the market seems to be flooded with so many of such people?
Thank you for that. So I'd go back to what solution are you providing, or what problem are you sorting? So if you feel it's flooded, then it may mean that you're not providing a solution, because people already have options. So either relook into another issue, still maybe within the branding and design, and see that, okay, maybe people have these options, but then maybe there's a shorter turnaround, or rather a long turnaround time, or the quality is different, or there's something unique that has come into the space of branding. So if your passion is in branding and design, and you find the market flooded, please don't go back and invent another, they say another brand that is just like the one next door, because you're setting yourself up for a lot of work in terms of setting yourself apart. So I would try and go back and say, okay, so these solutions are already available, but what else are the customers looking for? So maybe they're not satisfied with something or some angle, and then now create a solution around that. Otherwise, if you already have it, then you really need to be creative about getting your clients amongst the noise. So I would suggest, again, we go back to that thing of what solution are you, what problem are you solving?
Sure.
Because if it's been solved, like, for example, I'm used to being branded by XYZ, you really have to make a lot of effort to move me from XYZ, whether it's pricing or what. And sometimes we're with XYZ because we've built a relationship with them. It's not necessarily even about price. It may not even be about quality. It may just be that this is what I'm comfortable working around with. Yeah. So maybe relook, and sometimes it may need us to move from a certain business to another one. I remember interviewing this lady in my 43 at 43 series, Evelyn. She has a moving company, and she didn't start with a moving company. She started with something about nurses. I think she wanted to offer nurse aid care, and it didn't work because one, I think she was not very good in the health sector, but also it wasn't her passion, and she used to work for a moving company. So the fact that she lost her job, she decided to start her own moving company. So she completely left what she had initially started with and built one from scratch, a moving company. So sometimes I think don't be afraid of closing down a company if it's no longer making sense. Don't hold on to it because you're the one who started. So there's opportunity for you to sell the business. There's opportunity for you to close it. There's opportunity for you to start another one. Parting shot is once you have identified the why, yeah, society has many problems, many. In fact, COVID has provided many more. So there's no shortage of opportunities. I think it is for us to grab the opportunity while at it. Yeah, when it's there. In fact, I think my today's quote was about opportunities are like sunsets. You have a very narrow window to catch them. Yeah. So look around you. There is definitely. Sometimes I feel like I have too many ideas and I have to narrow down to, okay, I have a lot on my plate already. But there are many ideas we can't all be business people, but we also can't all miss a business to do. And then follow fast the passion, the money will come after. Yeah, don't put the money first. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, KEPSA, for allowing a very young entrepreneur. I don't know if I call myself an entrepreneur, but yeah, I'm a chief visionary officer of Wanderlust Diaries. Thank you.